So yeah. So what was that last thing you were saying, Alfonso?
Well, fundamentally, it's like the whole point. I think a big part of the reason why basically everybody's descended from one man and one woman is that specifically God wanted everybody to be like descended from like one coupling, so that like there'd be no reason for anybody to hate each other based off of like color, creed, or anything like that, because everybody would be like related. However, to be honest, to me, that sounds like a bunch of hokey pokey, okey dokey, very nonsense.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, it is true. They are descended from like one woman technically, specifically mitochondrial Eve, but like that's like, I think the people who were saying, you know, like, oh, the reason we're all descended from one man or one woman is like, so that, like, whatever hippie nonsense you're saying. I think you're reading a bit too much into it. You know what I mean?
So when you say the mitochondrial Eve, do you mean that like Eve was kind of like was part of a cell? She was kind of like a fungi or something, and then
there's actually documented a Y chromosomal Adam and mitochondrial Eve. These are like two completely separate people who probably lived like hundreds of thousands of years apart, but specifically every single human is descended from both of them.
yeah.
So like this one, like you can like, in theory, you can go like up to like everybody's mother, and then the mother's mother, and then the mother's mother, up to back to mitochondrial Eve, and every single human who's ever been, who's currently alive is descended from that one woman. And technically, who this woman can be can change. You know, for example, as different groups of like different ethnic groups die out, for example, and like so like the one woman everybody's descended from, like, you know, gets like further and further to like closer history. You know, it's very interesting. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that scientists would even say something like that. Like, even if they found that was true, I would think that they'd just be like, oh well.
Well, specifically, it's because like there's different. The reason it's called mitochondrial DNA is mitochondrial Eve is because like we can tell like different groups of people from their mitochondrial DNA, which always comes from your mother.
Oh,
so,
okay.
For example, there's like one specific like subset of DNA that, for example, that's common to like every single human that's currently alive on Earth. You know, and it's basically common to like it's basically been traced back to like a specific lineage of people who live in West Africa. You know.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, because some people say that like when people's skin got lighter, it was because of some kind of genetic alteration or something like that.
Yeah,
or
it was because of genetic adaptation. You know.
Yeah.
And that's actually the reason, like, for example, why a lot of like random traits, for example, are associated, for example, with like skin color, is because since skin color was such an important, like, for example, like earwax. Like earwax doesn't really matter that much, but there's different types of earwax among different ethnic groups.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because since skin color was so important to, you know, evolve, because if you have dark skin and you're in the cold, frozen north, and you don't have any vitamin D pills, you're not going to exactly have a good time. So it's so important for people to evolve lighter and lighter skin that basically like random traits that like the people who had lighter skin quite simply happen to have, like for example wetter earwax, actually get passed down the family tree. You know, even though there's even though there's really no like evolutionary reason for it to happen. You know.
Wow. Or maybe there was. Maybe like the world was dark without the white man's earwax candles.
I do not think I do not think evolution works in that way. Because like fundamentally, evolution is just like just how we understand a completely chaotic system. You know, like there's no real reason to evolve anything. It's just, you know, like the offspring that coincidentally manages to survive each generation, even if they're not the fittest, is the ones that get to reproduce and pass their traits down. You know.
Well, that's true. I mean, you know, like I think that one time I talked to a guy and he said that it wasn't the survival of the fittest, but it was the survival of the smoothest, which is it's funny, right? Because it's like, especially in this day and age, it doesn't seem to be, at least in this part of the world, doesn't really seem to be so much about blunt force. You know, it's a lot more like meticulous and calculated, and you know, it's still can be aggressive, but it's just done in a more kind of graceful way, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But
well, basically surviving to like reproductive age and being able to have children in like the current world basically relies on three things. One, being genetically fit enough to like survive to like reproductive adulthood, like 25 years or so. Two, not doing anything stupid to get yourself killed before then. And three, basically having enough resources to actually be able to support children, you know, and like be able to acquire a partner and stuff like that to actually have children with, you know.
That's true.
But a lot of these are not really related to, for example, just like having like the biggest muscles or the biggest heart or whatever, you know, like not actual physical fitness, but just like mental acuity, you know.
Yeah, because that's a good point because I guess it's like if like dancing is considered, attractive when people are gonna be on a dance floor and see someone dancing, they could look at that as like fighting. Like people are gonna fight and be like, oh man, you want to dance or something like that, and then it kind of comes down to like, that mental acuity that could be used for hunting or for all that other kind of macho stuff.
I mean,
Hang on, no, yeah, let me talk too, man. It's my show, but it's our show right now, But what was I saying? Yeah, like it does translate over. But I think an interesting thing is that a lot of people would say that evolution is when people think evolution, they automatically think about us coming from monkeys. But in a sense, it's different than that, right? It can be anything from losing your wisdom teeth to making Caucasian earwax candles. It could be it could be just about anything. Just about how times make us change. I mean, it's like you could be a taxi driver like 30 years ago, and then you're driving around. You have the whole city memorized, even if it's not a big city. Like the pathways in your brains will actually start to resemble the map of the city that you're driving in. And but then 20, 30 years go by and you get GPS, and then you could have been doing that for so long and you just forget it because you don't need it anymore. So that's like evolution, de-evolution. But anyways, you wanted to say something.
Well, I'm not sure if your brain would actually start to resemble like the
Well,
pathway.
that's what they say, man.
I think that's more meant to be a symbolic stuff. I do not think that. I think obviously pathways in your brain are going to be assigned to. For example, remember the map. I do not think they're actually good. I do not think your brain chemistry will be altered in a way to resemble the map of your area. But what I mean is like when you're talking about dancing stuff. I mean, you also have to think about peacocks, for example. Like male peacocks have evolved to be like bigger and flashier. Like,
They know how to shake that thing.
Yeah, and basically be able to dance, not for any actual survival reason, but just because like female peacocks like it when like male peacocks go do their thing,
Yeah.
Oh, I hate to interrupt, but I gotta go. I'm gonna be late for class.
Yeah, well, it was nice to meet you, Oliver.
It was nice to meet you.
You have a nice day, Ben.
I should probably also get going as well. So, see you around, I guess. I know you kind of have this sort of energy where I feel like I'm never going to see you ever again. So,
Interesting. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, basically, what I mean is like I feel like this encounter was surreal enough that like even though there's reason enough to believe that you'll show up again, I'll literally never see you ever again.
Well, I am moving pretty soon, so that's good intuition, and when you mentioned surreal, it's funny you say that because I felt pretty surreal coming out here. Like I was actually really tired. I'm just waiting to meet up with my dad, and it's gonna be a little while. So I just figured, okay, I'll come down here, and like I just felt kind of like something was guiding me to come down here. I was like, I didn't really feel like it, but then next thing I know, I'm like, here we are.
Yeah, now we've had a very interesting philosophical discussions for the Hall of Athens, I guess. So, what's your channel? I'm interested now.
It's Perry and Friends. No, sorry. It's type in Perry Davidson on YouTube. I'll help you find it. Here, hang on.
Is that